Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in with us today. I'm your host, Shana, and it is Rapid Fire Friday. Our phone lines are already open, so if you want to get your call queued up, the phone number is 610-363-1110. Financial Issues is a ministry that helps to educate people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. We hope that you're a partner with us because we are a listener and partner-supported ministry. You can find out all about the ministry at financialissues.org. On today's show, we're going to get to your calls and questions. So 610-363-1110. We'll also get you in the know about the most recent economic and market information, and we'll get encouragement from the scripture as always. Today we'll be in Matthew 18:15 through 17. And today we also want to remember the 81st anniversary of the D-Day invasion. More on that later in the show as well. Right now, we want to get you caught up. At Financial Issues, we help you to stay in the know about the financial issues of the day. We help keep you abreast of what's happening in the economy and the markets and help you understand how that impacts your own personal financial issues. So today is June the 6th, 2025, and I have a few takeaways from the week leading up to today. Yesterday, Trump had an hour-and-a-half phone call with China's President Xi, and all was reported to have gone well, which is good for the trade situation. Here is what Trump posted in a Truth Social post. Guys, can you read that? It's too small for me to read.
Yeah, Shana, here, I've got it for you. He says, I just concluded, I won't do my Trump voice to spare everyone that. I just concluded a very good phone call with President Xi of China, discussing some of the intricacies of our recently made and agreed to trade deal. The call lasts approximately 1.5 hours, resulting in a very positive conclusion for both countries. That's good, Shana. He says there should no longer be any questions respecting the complexity of rare earth products. Our respective teams will be meeting shortly at a location to be determined. Will be represented by Treasury Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. During the conversation, President Xi graciously invited the First Lady and me to visit China, and I reciprocated. As presidents of two great nations, this is something we both look forward to doing. The conversation was focused almost entirely on trade. Nothing was discussed concerning Russia, Ukraine, or Iran. We will inform the media as to scheduling and location of the soon-to-be meeting. Thanks for your attention. So good stuff all around, it seems, Shana.
It would have sounded even better if you did the Trump voice.
I know. We'll spare our
good
audience.
stuff there, but tariffs are so last week. This week is all about the big, beautiful bill or the disgusting abomination, depending on which side of the fence you are on. On Wednesday, the Congressional Budget Office released their assessment of the big, beautiful bill. They said a lot of things, but the main things that they said was that there would be a $3.7 trillion in tax cuts. Now, keep in mind, most of that are tax cuts that we already have under the current system. And if we didn't do the tax cuts, we would get like a $4 trillion tax hike. The CBO said also that there would be $1.7 trillion in mandatory savings that are written into the bill. The net effect, though, they said would be a $3.8 trillion increase to our national debt over the next 10 years. And that comes from a couple of moving parts. One is a $2.4 trillion continuing annual deficits, which means that we're still not balancing the budget. We're still spending more money than we're bringing in looking into the future, according to the CBO report. Plus the $1.4 trillion in cost to finance the current debt plus the continuing deficits. So you put it also said it would put 10.9 million people out of health insurance, including 1.4 million that are in the country without legal status. My question, why are we paying for them anyway, and why are they here? But we all know the answers to that. We won't run down that rabbit trail. But the CBO doesn't count the $2.8 trillion in tariff revenue because of intricacies on how they calculate that. So they are only accounting for a 1.8% growth rate. You have to make some projections when you're forward looking, and they're calculating a 1.8% growth rate. Now, those in the Trump camp argue that the growth rate will be much higher than what they're projecting, and that changes everything. Well, Elon weighed in on that. In a post on X, Elon wrote, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. It will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit to $2.5 trillion and burden American citizens with crushing, unsustainable debt." Well, the disagreement escalated very publicly on social media when Trump expressed his disappointment in Musk's stance and his delay on voicing his opposition. He said that Musk was very familiar with what was in the bill, and he's now only voicing his opposition. And he threatened to terminate government contracts with Musk Company, including Tesla, SpaceX, and even suggested that Elon has contracted Trump derangement syndrome. In response, Musk accused Trump of ingratitude for helping him get elected, poor leadership, and even suggested impeachment and alleged suppression of information related to Jeffrey Epstein. The feud intensified with both parties exchanging jabs on social media platforms. So I get where Elon is coming from. It's unbelievably frustrating when you know how money works and you know how business works and you can see the handwriting on the wall about where this country is going fast if nothing changes in regards to our spending. Trump created Doge to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse, which he believes will help in lowering inflation. Elon worked his fingers to the bone, uncovering $170 billion in disgusting abominations that our tax dollars have been and somewhat are continuing to fund. At the end of the day, Trump inherited a massive mess. This mess wasn't created overnight. It was created over decades, and it cannot be unwound with one big, beautiful bill. So Trump has to deliver what we, the people, elected him to do: to reduce inflation, to close the border, to keep the tax cuts, to make America an attractive place to do business again, to nix the DEI and woke ideologies that have infiltrated their way into this country, contrary to the majority of the majorities of Americans' value systems. The big, beautiful bill will jumpstart the process of making America great, but constitutionally, it's Congress's job to control the purse strings. Congress is the problem here. When it comes to mandatory spending, that is legislated by Congress and must be addressed by Congress. The president only has sway over some discretionary spending in certain ways. Doge cuts will likely be dealt with by a process called rescission, where the president and secretaries ask Congress to withhold appropriations because they are voluntarily reducing their budgets. They're taking a hard look at it, and they're saying, we think we can do our job with less money. Wouldn't that be refreshing? Well, I can't believe Trump found common ground with Elizabeth Warren about the debt ceiling, but I did hear him say it with my own ears. So maybe the common conclusion that he says that we need to do away with the debt ceiling is there, but there's anything but common ground on the reasoning for it. So I hope it's because Trump's debt ceiling, Trump sees that the debt ceiling needs to be negotiated in the budget, because if not, it undoes everything that's agreed to in a budget when you address the debt ceiling later. Congress really shouldn't be able to pass laws that increase that call for spending that is not allowable by their own statutes. Well, since last Friday, the markets are in positive territory. For the week, the Dow is up. The Dow and the S&P are up almost 0.5%. The NASDAQ is up around 1%, and the pre-markets jumped this morning on what the markets perceived as a better than expected non-farm payroll report. U.S. non-farm payrolls increased by 139,000 in May, a small slowdown from April's downwardly revised 147,000, but slightly above expectations of 130,000. Payroll figures for March and April were revised lower by 95,000 jobs. The unemployment rate held steady at 4.2%. The unemployment trend continues to be up. The employment trend continues to be up in healthcare and some other areas, and down in federal jobs. That's a good thing, a loss in federal jobs. Folks, we've got to take a break, but I've got more to talk about, so we're going to have to pick up here when we get back. Our phone lines are open. 610-363-1110 is the phone number.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Through Crossroads Kids Club, lives like Dali's are being changed all over the world.
When I was 8 years old, my parents separated temporarily. It made me feel lost, empty, and without direction. Until one day, I went with my cousins to the Crossroads Club. This led me to know Lord Jesus and accept Him in my heart. He changed my life, and I don't feel lonely anymore.
Reaching kids with the hope of the gospel in schools and across the world. You can change a young life today at reachOurschools.com.
Preborn is making motherhood possible for thousands of moms across America.
I found out that I was pregnant. My family, they were like, no, you're not having this baby. I met Miss Linda. She offered to get me an ultrasound. That's where I very first heard the heartbeat. It was really a great thing that I was led to the choice to keep them.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm your host, Shana Burt. Phone lines are open. 610-363-1110 is the phone number that you can call to ask us questions about stewardship, biblically responsible investing, the markets, the economy, and whatever is concerning you with your own personal financial issues. Well, at the beginning of the show, we gave kind of the rundown or the partial rundown for the week of what's happening in the markets and the economy. We had left off with the non-farm payrolls report, which is the first week of the month. Always we get all of those jobs reports, and that prior to trades, tariffs, and the trade war, and the big spat on social media. The jobs report used to be really important. It did no real news, but I'll pick back up where I was talking about there. The federal government continued to lose jobs in May to the tune of 22,000 and is down 59,000 since January. I'm expecting that number to increase as we get past this big, beautiful bill, as government agencies really take a hard look at what they're doing and how much money they actually need to accomplish their task and how many employees they need. That will sort of weigh negatively in GDP, since government payrolls factor into GDP as well. But, economists know that and will include that in their assessments. Unemployment in manufacturing decreased by 8,000 in this last report, and the official data remains consistent with slowing, yet we still have what is considered to be a robust labor market. Labor force participation, which measures the number of people that are able-bodied that are actually actively looking for work. So labor force participation is 62.4. It was down 0.2%. It's never good when labor force participation goes in the opposite rate. We want more people coming into the workforce, and that will be needed as well as we see these deportations and maybe mass deportations in some cases. So what's coming next week? Well, the focus is going to shift to inflation. Well, I guess that depends on, unless anything earth-shattering comes out of the Trump administration. Right. But for economists, the focus is going to shift to inflation, with the May CPI, the Consumer Price Index report, coming out next Wednesday. Core CPI is expected to cool slightly, but any upside surprise could further delay rate cuts out of the Federal Reserve. We won't hear much from the Federal Reserve next week either, because we're in the quiet period. The Fed meets the week after next, so there are no speeches or public comments to be expected from Fed officials in the coming week. We will also have an eye on small business optimism, consumer sentiment, and continued developments in Washington around taxes, tariffs, and spending. So I really do pray that Trump and Elon can put their egos behind them for the good of the country. They both have so much to contribute, and start acting, I won't say acting their ages, but acting their IQs. Now that you're in the know about the recent and upcoming financial issues, we hope that you'll learn more about how we can help you integrate those issues into your own stewardship. So at Financial Issues, we equip you with the tools to defund darkness so that you can be your own portfolio manager and manage your own biblically responsible portfolio. And we consistently encourage you to fund the light by being a joyful, generous, and obedient giver. If you haven't already, I encourage you to become a partner. You'll get access to our asset allocation models and our weekly buy list, where you can build your own biblically responsible portfolio in a way that honors God. You'll also have access to our weekly commentary and our monthly partner conference calls. So if you haven't done that, we encourage you to do that now.
Yeah. Shana, I really love what you had to say about that. I think the Babylon Bee put out an article earlier this week talking about how Trump and Elon each get custody of the country. It's kind of like the divorce there. But, I did want to ask you, Shana, what do you make of all of this from a spiritual perspective? I mean, I know, Trump has claimed to be a Christian. I don't know where Elon Musk's heart is, but I think there's a lot we can think about this. What do you think?
One time I had a dream, this was about a year or two ago, that I ran into Elon Musk at a sporting event, which I don't really go to. I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe God's going to bring me out of my comfort zone. But anyway, I had an opportunity to share the gospel with Elon, and he was sort of receptive to it. So I don't know. I don't know where Elon Musk stands either. Having a high IQ really can be a stumbling block to coming to faith too. So. But, only God knows that. But this would be a great time for both of them to turn to the Word of God for wisdom. And I picked our stewardship verse of the day as I was pondering and, really reading through some of the the comments that were going back and forth between Trump and Musk. And that led me to Matthew 18:15 through 17. It says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. So, what the scripture tells us is that rather than taking to social media, they should have first tried to resolve it personally and privately. We don't know that didn't happen, but it doesn't seem like it did. They should have also then involved others. Mike Johnson, I heard an interview that he said, the Speaker of the House, he said about his break in fellowship with Musk that, he and Elon used to talk all the time and text all the time, but then that fellowship kind of got broken. But he also said, policy is not personal. So that is a little bit more of a spiritually mature stance on that rather than trading licks on social media. If not resolved, then just privately they should move their separate ways rather than create this public spectacle. So Musk, I think, should be able to speak his mind on social media. I think anybody has the right to do that. I think we should be responsible when we do that, though. So he should be able to speak his mind in his opposition to the bill without poking the bear, without attacking the very character of President Trump. And at the end of the day, Elon should respect the office of president and the choice of the American people. But most importantly, God, since all authority is God ordained. So Trump being the president is overseen by God, and Trump is leading the country. Trump, on the other hand, should be able to forgive the personal attacks, to thank Elon for his service, and try to privately reconcile with Elon. Although I did see news that Trump said that he's not interested in a phone call with Elon. Perhaps that is some wisdom. There's that 24-hour rule, that if you want to write an email or say something, you should sit on it for at least 24 hours just to make sure that your emotions are not leading. So maybe that is wisdom. But, Trump should just move forward and do the next right thing. So perhaps the remembrance of D-Day could remind the two of them that they have more in common than what separates them at the moment. And that is their great love for this country. And that so many men and women have fought so hard and even died for. And it's great to remember that on days like today. So Seth, as the resident history buff, would you like to share a brief history and your thoughts on D-Day?
Sure, I'd be glad to, Shana. Well, as you folks know, today is D-Day, 81st anniversary of it. Interestingly enough, Shana, it was actually supposed to be June 5th. Dwight Eisenhower and the commanders of the Allied forces had planned for June 5th, and bad weather delayed it to June 6th. So that's why it's June 6th. About 160,000 Allied forces, many of them American, some British, some Canadian, descended on the beaches of Normandy on that day, coming from the English Channel on June 6, 1944. That first wave, Shana, your chance of survival, and keep in mind, this is 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, your chance of surviving that onslaught from the German forces, they had bunkers set up, machine guns everywhere on the beach, was about 50%. So it was either you didn't have much chance. But that initial wave was really the key to the entire invasion of the European landmass that eventually led to the downfall of Nazi Germany. You had the Americans coming from the west, and then you had the Russians closing on the east, and they were able to take down Germany within the next year and month or so. By May 1945, the Germans had surrendered. Just an incredible act of sacrifice and courage, Shana. And I think you're exactly right. I think it would do both Trump and Musk well to consider that kind of love that was shown for their countrymen, and maybe consider showing that same kind of love to each other.
Maybe it would also help to resensitize some of those who throw around that Nazi term.
Yeah, that's exactly
flippantly,
right. Yeah.
That the Nazis were a very evil force, and it's sad that there are those in this country that want to equate anyone in power
Absolutely.
to.
Isn't it kind of interesting? Both Trump and Musk have been called Nazis before. So, hopefully they can look at that. And but yeah, Shana, just a tremendous day, similar to Memorial Day. I think is a day for us to remember and solemnly reflect on the sacrifice of these really they were barely men. They were boys, you know.
And I'll do a plug for Seth's A Moment in History. The archive is still on YouTube. He has plenty of great content about D-Day on there, so go check that out. A Moment in History on YouTube.
Sam. Yep, for sure. Good stuff.
Yep.
And also, speaking of Seth, he does Bible studies on Friday morning. Hope that you joined in for that this morning. And whether you're a partner or just a casual listener, this is a great resource that's open to all. You can find out information on our website, financialissues.org. And is it still in the resources tab, I guess?
It's still under the resources tab, Shannon. Just go to join our Bible study. And then if you're a partner, you can go to the partner side of the website, that Partners Hub. You scroll down a little bit and you can see there's a Bible study button. Just click there. That'll take you to all the past Bible studies that we've done. I think today's Bible study is uploaded, or it will be soon. So
sounds great. And also housed there on the website and our phone app, you can get all of the past episodes of Financial Issues. So if you tune in and you hear the tail end of something and you think, man, I wish I would have heard the beginning of that, you can always go back and listen. You can also catch it on your favorite place to get podcast, Apple, Spotify, but get that phone app, because that's the one place that you'll be sure that you can always find our content, and you can listen when it's convenient for you. So if you can't tune in during the show times, you can always go back and catch it. Find out more information about that and more, our ministry, at financialissues.org. Well, if you're listening on a station that only carries the short version of the show, we just told you how to get the full show. We hope that you'll do that. And for those of you who can stick around, we are going to be back with more Financial Issues after the break. Our phone lines are open, and we'll jump right into Rapid Fire Friday. 610-363-1110 is the phone number. I'm your host, Shana Burt. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
We're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
If you're like me and used to think managing your investments was overwhelming or just for the experts, think again. I used to believe I needed a financial analyst to handle everything, but Financial Issues showed me I could manage my own investments while staying true to my faith. It's completely transformed how I handle my finances. What felt like a foreign language is now simple. I can buy and sell stocks with confidence, knowing my investments align with my faith. And the best part, this empowering, life-changing guidance is affordable, just $132 a year. FISM gave me the tools to restructure my portfolio, diversify, and track my investments. Their video library taught me how to steward what God has entrusted to me with wisdom. If you're ready to gain financial peace and manage your investments with purpose, I can't recommend Financial Issues enough. It's something anyone can do.
To learn more, go to financialissues.org.
Preborn is making motherhood possible for thousands of moms across America.
I found out that I was pregnant, and my family, they were like, no, you're not having this baby. I met Miss Linda. She told me about all the great resources, like they offer free baby clothes, they offer free classes, stuff for mom. She prayed with me. She told me to ask God to, guide me to my decision. She made it completely like my choice. She offered to get me an ultrasound, and I found out I was 6 weeks pregnant. That's where I very first heard the heartbeat of my son, and I was told, whatever I gotta do, whatever comes my way, I'm just gonna, have this baby. It was really a great thing that I was led to the choice to keep him.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope that you're caught up on all your financial issues for the week. Our phone lines are open. Looks like we may be getting a call right now. 610-363-1110 is the phone number to call. And if you've continued to listen, maybe if you're tuning in for the first time or you're just getting acquainted with financial issues, we mentioned that we do have the strategy for you to become your own portfolio manager, to build your own portfolio with the use of our asset allocation models and our buy list. We also have a more hands-off approach to it if that doesn't sound fun to you, or like you maybe don't have enough expertise or time to do it on your own. We do have a fund and ETF model where it's much easier to build and manage a portfolio where you use mutual funds and ETFs that have professional managers that do the day-to-day work for you, so you don't have to be as involved. And a lot of those funds and ETFs come from the Timothy Plan. The Timothy Plan is a biblically responsible mutual fund company. They were the very first in the industry. They've been around. They just celebrated their, last year. I say just. It's almost been a year, I guess. Their 30th year in existence, and they have an amazing story. They have an amazing heart for the kingdom of God and the desire to be to honor God in the way that they invest. They are uncompromising when it comes to biblically responsible investing. They have a great screening process where it takes a lot of time and energy to go through public companies and see what they are, how they are deploying the resources that the shareholders actually own. Now, we believe, of course, that God owns everything and that we're just managers of those things, but we don't want to use God's money to fund darkness. The causes of abortion and pornography and the LGBTQ agenda, human rights violations, and so many things that grieve the heart of the Lord. So the Timothy Plan is completely sold out for biblically responsible investing, and they are the place to go if you have a heart to honor God in the way that you invest, but maybe you just don't have the time or expertise to actually put together and work on a portfolio of your own. You can find out more information about the Timothy Plan by going to our website, financialissues.org. All right, so while we're waiting on some calls, I know we have something on social media. I think you said Rumble.
Do, Shana. Yeah, so listener from Rumble named Sherry. Hello, Sherry. Sherry's saying, any advice on why my portfolio tracker is showing $35,000 more than what's in the Fidelity account? I've checked multiple times.
Yeah. Okay. So, it sounds like you've already done the work, but what I would do for sure is to go through and make sure I would, if you have a dual screen, I don't know how people work without a dual screen, but if you don't, maybe you can print out a list of your holdings in alphabetical order and then compare them to what you're showing in your portfolio tracker. It's best to see the dollar amounts, to see if there's anything really off, because a $35,000 difference on $1 million portfolio is probably not that much, and it's probably accounted for just between refresh times. So it's the market just opened, so if you go back and refresh it, it might be closer to up to date. But your brokerage account may be showing a different read on the prices for the securities that you own. The portfolio tracker probably is just going to show the closing price as of yesterday. So that could be one reason for the discrepancy. Now, if it's a $35,000 difference on a $100,000 portfolio, that's much different. So I don't know, whether to say there's probably something wrong in some of the inputs on your portfolio tracker, or if it's just, that difference in when the API feed, when the feed that gets the information about share prices is coming in. So if that doesn't line out fairly quickly, then and it's a $35,000 difference on a much smaller number, then maybe just email Pat, and sometimes she can help with those individual cases.
That's good, Shana. Thank you for that. Jumping over to Ask Shana, we've got Len. He's 66 years old. Len's saying, I'm trying to enter my 457 account funds. I'm not retired. And his question is, what style and category does a bond fund get assigned to? He mentions a particular bond fund there, Shana. It wasn't recognized, so it's not letting him enter it into his portfolio. What do you think?
All right. So the thing that you can do is to, if the software, the portfolio tracker, is not recognizing the ticker symbol, you could look and see if there is a different share class for that particular. It mentions his share class is an R6. So you could, maybe in a search engine or something, just search and see if that same fund has a more widely recognizable ticker symbol, like if it's available in retail accounts, because sometimes what's available in employer-sponsored accounts is a little bit different. If that works, you might just have to manipulate the number of shares to the share price to get the exact amount. If it doesn't, you could just manually enter it by using the symbol that we use for cash, which I believe is FDUXX. I believe
that's
you can
correct,
check.
Shana.
Okay,
yep.
FDUXX, and you can just put in 1 for the, or just put in the number. The value is going to be 1, so you could just put in the total value of whatever your bond fund is at the time. Then you're going to match it to fixed income, and you can code the industry as mutual fund. That way, it would show up there. Now, what you'll have to do is you'll have to manually update it if you can't get the portfolio tracker to recognize that symbol.
Awesome, Shana. Thank you for that one. Carl's up next here. Carl doesn't say his age, but he's got a good question. He says, how is it possible to have biblically responsible funds that track something like the S&P 500 fund or international funds? It seems like the amount of companies offered would be too difficult to analyze. What do you think?
Well, companies like the Timothy Plan or the Timothy Partners that have the evaluator software makes it really easy to evaluate the biblically responsible nature of different companies. I think that's what he's talking about there. There's also another industry tool that we will use for reference sometimes to see if companies, we just don't have the staff that it would take to do the immense amount of, and Sam can speak to that. It's a lot of research to go through and see. He's kind of our resident BRI research person here at the ministry, but we do use other resources primarily as a starting point because they do have the time and the resources that it takes to do all of that research. So, you can't really, I don't even know what percentage the S&P 500 is that's not clean, but it's a high percentage. Now, if you look at the whole universe of stocks that you can invest in, the number is still somewhere around 10% of publicly traded companies are not biblically responsible. That still leaves a really big universe, well over 5,000 different individual stocks that are still okay to invest in. From there, we narrow that down and we do the research. In your portfolio, if you're building your own portfolio, you really only need about 30 to 50 individual companies to make a good diversified portfolio. So we don't need the thousands and thousands of companies that are out there. We can just pick the best from that. So it's really, you can feel confident that if you have a S&P type fund that mimics the S&P 500, that it is not biblically responsible. So use our strategy. It's a great way to make sure that you're honoring God, that your portfolio's clean, and then you get a real sense of ownership on stewarding those investments. Well, folks, we're going to hear from Craig Haugaard with the Ag Report. After Craig, we're going to take a short break. Then we'll be back with more financial issues. You can get your call queued up now. 610-363-1110 is the phone number to call, and you'll be the first caller in the queue. Well, here comes Craig.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for June 6th. Well, the corn market closed higher for the third day in a row yesterday, but gains have been minimal for July corn compared to the more deferred months. Now, yesterday was the final prevent plant date for corn in the eastern corn belt, and in areas where they're already behind the average planting pace, they were getting more rain yesterday. It's a pretty safe bet that some of the expected acres are not going to get planted. It's going to be interesting to see if and when the USDA changes their acreage assumptions. July corn finished today 3/4 of a cent higher at 4.39.5. The soybean market found support on news of a positive phone conversation between the U.S. and China, as well as a weaker U.S. dollar. In South American news, soybean harvest in Argentina is now 90% complete with better than expected yields. July corn finished the day 6 3/4 cents higher at 10.51 3/4. The wheat markets were a shade better, with support coming from an uptick in military operations the past few days in the Black Sea region. Minneapolis July wheat finished the day a penny and 3/4 higher at 6.25 1/4. Kansas City rose by 2 cents to close at 5.42 1/2, and we had Chicago 2 1/4 cents better at 5.45 1/2. Cotton futures saw their sideways saga continue. July futures ended the day 37 points higher as they closed out the session at 65.36. Livestock futures were mixed. Both live cattle and feeder cattle exploded higher, putting in new life of contract highs. August live cattle were $4.47 1/2 higher at $216.82 1/2 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle rose by $5.27 1/2, closing out the day at $309.15 per hundred. We had July hogs 22 1/2 lower at $104.80 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures saw their slump continue. When the closing bell finally sounded, July futures were down another 25 points, ending the day at 18.64. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. They do an ultrasound, and that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby, and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Through Crossroads Kids Club, lives like Sarah E's are being changed all over the world.
When I was 8 or 9 years old, I became aware of the kind of family environment that I was living in. My father, thanks to his alcoholism and drug use, ran the home with insults, physical and psychological abuse. And that led me to start harming myself. But when the church started the Crossroads Club, it helped me to draw closer to feeling Christ in my heart again, and to heal. When I was at the Crossroads Club, seeing the volunteers serving God, this truly filled my heart with a lot of joy. I wanted to be like them.
Reaching kids with the hope of the gospel in schools and across the world. You can change a young life today at reachOurSchools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We're at the home stretch of the program today. Thanks for sticking with us. Our phone lines are open, 610-363-1110. We're going to get to Sheila here in just a second, but the call queue is open after that. If you call now, we'll be able to get to you today, 610-363-1110. Hi, Sheila. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
And love you guys. We listen every day. So my question is, in materials, we're supposed to have 1%. So after moving metals and mining out, I have one position. It's MA43, and it's down significantly. It's down 34%. I'm at 0.59%. And I don't know if I should add to it to get up to 1% of material or leave it, because since I'm so far down, but it just looks like it's on a decline. It says hold.
Yeah.
But
gosh, that's a tough one. You could. I mean, it's not something that I'm super excited about right now. I would rather see. Let me see if I can find the symbol for it real quick. I would rather see you have exposure to MA65 is the one that's on the buy list, that if you have your metals and mining and taken care of with your commodities, I'd rather that one. So because it is such a low percentage and you already have that position, I wouldn't necessarily sell it, but if you were looking to put new money in, I would look towards MA65.
All right. Thank you very much. And you guys have a blessed weekend.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. God bless
that was a great rapid fire.
Yeah. Way to go, Sheila. Very nice.
All right.
So we got another call in here, Shana, but I don't know if that person's ready yet.
Okay. So let's do some of the other questions.
Yeah, good deal. JJ is up here, Shana. JJ is asking about some funds. He's saying, since the allocations are mutual funds in these, it says X%, does that mean you're free to have one mutual fund per allocation as opposed to the stock allocations where you need several? That's his first question.
Okay, so if it is a allocation that says mutual funds, what you can do, and it's broken out into like large cap, mid cap growth, value, value, and then mid and small cap. So depending on what the category says, you're going to go to the buy list and look at those styles. For those. So there's a couple of different choices. In some cases, there's an ETF choice and a mutual fund choice. Depending on how your portfolio is constructed, if it's easier for you to buy the ETFs, then you can go that route. If you can buy the mutual funds and you like those better, then you can do those. So there's a little bit of a choice there. So you can split it if it says 5% between them, you can put half in an ETF and half in the mutual fund, or that's sort of the do-it-yourself part. You can look at the different options that are on the buy list and pick from those.
Awesome. Second question from JJ here, Shana, is since Timothy Plan does not have a commodity mutual fund, do you just choose something from the buy list for commodities?
Yeah, so there's only two things in the commodities section, in the commodities buy list, and so you would make up your commodities section just from those two ETFs.
Awesome. Final question from JJ here, Shana. He says, I have ETF4 and MF47. Do I get rid of one? And he loves being a partner of the ministry also. And he's 53. That helps.
That's kind of similar to the first part of his question. So both of those, I do believe, if I'm recognizing the symbol correctly, they're very similar. So that's one where there is a ETF version and there is a mutual fund version. So it just depends on the logistics. Like, for example, it looks like he probably has A shares for his mutual fund. So if he needs to add more into that category and maybe he's overweight in another one of his Timothy mutual funds, he can just do an exchange. That would be one of the considerations to try to minimize, transaction costs there. I would use the fund in that case. If you if you didn't have the ability to buy the mutual fund version of it, then maybe you go with the ETF version.
Awesome, Shana. That's good stuff. Okay, so we've got a call. Dale is calling from Texas. If you want to get to him, we can do that. We've also got some other questions lined up if we need to get to those as well.
We can try Dale's.
All right, let's do it. Good morning, Dale. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hi, it's Daryl from the chat.
Oh, this is Daryl. Hey, Daryl. Good to see you, brother. Sorry, we had your name in there as Dale. Good to see you, Daryl.
That's fine. You too. I appreciate what y'all do, Shannon, Seth, and Sam, all you guys. Did a great job, Darlene.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, brother.
So my question is this. President Trump has talked about the Golden Dome, the big defense project. That may be pie in the sky. I don't know if that's something that you consider potentially on the short-term horizon, long-term horizon, but are there investments that you would recommend that we look at if that's to take advantage of that upcoming project?
Yeah, so, that's not something that we would say over the air. We don't give specific stock recommendations. That can be, it can be a double-edged sword. People hear you talk about companies and they may just go out and buy it without really taking into consideration whether it's right for them. So it's not something that we would just give a blanket recommendation to. I will say this, though, on our buy list, we do have several aerospace and defense companies on there. So if you want to, if you want to take a look at those, it's IN23, IN11 are the two that are currently on the buy list. And then there's even one, and I don't have the call number for it off the top of my head, but in the technology sector that is related to aerospace and defense. I'm sure you can probably.
And I think I own most of those. My question would also then be is that something that you would recommend we increase our allocation towards those if it fits within our allocation models?
It is, but within an industry or within a sector, you don't want to have all of your companies be in the same industry, because what will happen is that, they tend to be very positively correlated, and you want to have maximum diversification. So we're already building a sort of concentrated portfolio, meaning that, unlike a mutual fund that has 100 plus holdings, up to 300 or 500 holdings in some mutual funds, we're managing a more concentrated portfolio with only about 30 to 50 stocks. And so, if you're only going to be able to have maybe 3 or 4 stocks in a certain industry, you really don't want them to be all very similar and positively correlated. So you want to be able to cover your bases and kind of pick, the best of the best.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Well, perfect. Well, I'll keep an eye out for additions or subtractions on the buy list then.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for calling.
Awesome. Thanks, Daryl. Great to see you, brother, on the chat.
You too.
Yep.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Buddy.
All right.
That's great.
We probably have time to get a couple more.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go with Jeanette here, Shana. So Jeanette is going on Fidelity to buy MA55 and MA5. She says, before I can buy it, a notice pops up that says you're placing an order for a security that requires you to execute Fidelity's designated investments agreement and also requires an investment objective of most aggressive for this account. It goes on to say, review my investment objective. Do I agree to this in order to buy the sector of commodities? 63 years old. Thanks so much. What do you think for Jeanette?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is, I can't assess the risk for you. I can't read the disclaimer for you, but what I would do is just read that. And a lot of times, because the two investments in question are in the commodity sector, commodities does tend to have a little bit higher risk than just regular old common stock. And so Fidelity is just trying to cover their assets and, help make sure that you understand what you're buying. So as long as you read it and it doesn't trigger any kind of red flag for you, then I would agree with it. So, I would agree to it so that you can go in and purchase the holdings in question there.
Awesome, Shana. John is rebalancing here quickly, Shana. He needs to add about 1.5% into healthcare. He's got 3 stocks, HC59, HC76, HC30. He says, I'm never quite sure what to do when stocks fall below that 1% mark. Add to them and bring them up, or add something else on the buy list. Could you please advise me on what to do? God bless the Financial Issues team. Thank you. And he's 57 years old, Shana.
So if you need 1.5% into that particular sector, you could do it either way. What I would do at this point is I would just go and read about each of the companies that you own, read the news about them, see if you feel like they are, a good place to deploy new money, or since you need 1.5% and you want to, if you're going to go into establishing a new position, you want to get at least 1% in there, you could add a new one. So I would just take a look at the ones that you have, see what you think about them. If you like them, you could increase your investment into those, or you could add a new one at this point.
Awesome. Boy, I'd love to squeeze one more in, Shannon. Might just not have time, though, at the end.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to cut anybody short. So, folks, we hope that you enjoyed the program today. We hope that you were encouraged by it. We hope that you were, most of all, motivated to have a heart that wants to honor God in the way that you handle His stuff, because we do believe that God owns everything. The things that we have are just on loan to us while we're in this life, and We want to do well with the things that we have because the Master is coming back. There's going to be a test, and one day we are going to get to give an account of how we handled the time, talent, and treasure that God trusted us to manage. We want to be here to make sure that you have the resources that you need to honor God in the way that you invest. So please consider becoming a partner by going to financialissues.org. We hope that you have a wonderful day of worship on Sunday and come back next week because Lord willing, we'll be here to help remind you that God owns it all and we want to be found good and faithful stewards. I'm your host, Shana Burke. See you next week.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.